Welcome to the In-Depth Genealogist Chit Chat Live for the week of 26 March 2017. Hi everyone, I am Valerie Eichler, Lair, your host for the IDG Chit Chat Live. Today we're going to talk about Who Do You Think You Are?, Long Lost Family, and Relative Race, which are the current genealogy TV shows going on, in case you didn't know that and been living under a rock. But it's also your alert that if you haven't seen them, to pause this, go watch, and come back, okay? Because we're going to talk about the show and our opinions, our insights, and so forth. Joining me this week are Jennifer Alford. She is the publisher for In-Depth Genealogy, In-Depth Genealogist, the Going In-Depth magazine. So hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Val. It's great to be here.
It's good to finally see you.
Yeah. The problem is when you put out a magazine every month, you have to actually work on it. So I couldn't be here.
Really? I thought you just snap your fingers.
I wish it were that easy, but I do enjoy working on it. So I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, the most recent issue is awesome. So even though we missed you being in the last couple of Chit Chat Lives, we're glad to have you here, and we know because you worked hard. It's awesome. It looked beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we have Terry O'Connell, who is the Executive Director of In-Depth Genealogist. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Val. How are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to chat tonight?
Always ready to chat.
Yeah. And we also have Cheryl Hudson-Passy. Sherry is the Carolina Girl genealogy blogger, and she's a writer for the Going In-Depth magazine. Hi, Sherry. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Val.
How are you?
I'm ready to go. Let's get talking.
Did you meet your deadline for Jennifer to get the magazine out on time?
I did. I'm still working for next month.
I had to bring that up since she's here and you're here now at the same time.
Yeah, actually, our deadlines for the magazine are usually 2 months before it actually comes out. So, yes, I would know if she was behind.
That's good.
Sherry's
very good with the deadline.
very good.
And
Sherry's very good.
Her deadline, she'll remind you that we've discussed it and this is the deadline. I appreciate that. Yes.
Yes.
Good, good. Well, I want to start off with Who Do You Think You Are? This week was with Noah Wyle. My heart beat from when he was on ER, and it just so happened that the day before the Who Do You Think You Are episode, the day before, here where I live on cable, had the ER pilot episode back in 1994, and each subsequent episodes after that. So I was fangirl and watched all the shows Saturday. So, but I wanted to bring up a point that different people have been talking about. We've talked about it in private messages back and forth the last couple of days. But Hoodoo is in its 9th season, and they didn't get the go-ahead or the renewal until June 9th, 2016, last year. So 9 months later, on March 5th, was the first episode. So you figure that's how much time they had to do the research and to do the editing and so forth.
I have to interject.
Okay.
Only because when they did Martin Sheen, he was season 3, I believe. And they actually started research on his family in season 1.
Yeah, that's true. They did that. But
so even though the renewal was late, the research is going. It is ongoing even after, because they don't know what they're going to find, or is there a story that's going to be fit for the television audience.
Right. And after the season was renewed, I know through a really reliable source, in January of this year, they were at the Minnesota History Center, And I know this because they kicked her out of her classroom so that the film crew could go in there. And
Aww.
yeah, so it's like, ooh. And then I also know around that same time they were back east, either in Boston or New York. Someone had leaked that out a little bit, that they saw the crew. But I wanted to mention that this original series was based on the Britain TV documentary series. And so instead of doing what we would like to see them do as professional genealogists, we want to say, oh, we'll show the whole entire research process, or show every single document. And when back in 2013, I was in a session where some of the people from the show had indicated the length of time. The length of research is anywhere from 3 months to a year, but it averages about 6 months. There's a team of about 5 main researchers from Ancestry through their Ancestry Pro Genealogist section. And then there's an average of 10 or 20 other professional genealogists or historians that are also working on it. And this was in 2013, so I'm sure the hours have increased, but back then it was 1,991 hours average. And for a total that particular year was over 30,000 hours. They started with 3 researchers spending about 10 to 12 hours just to see if there was a story there, just to see if there was some documents to research. And then about another 1,000 hours to see where it was going to lead. So there's, they've already, like Terry mentioned, they had already started doing some of the research. We don't know, or I couldn't find out really who. First of all, I still don't know which one of the celebrities that they were doing the filming crew up in northern Minnesota, but we'll find that out when that show comes. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting because I have a sneaky feeling who it is, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to blurt it out if it was wrong.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I did enough spoiling by going down the rabbit hole to look at some of the research for Noah Wyle. And so, but anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of why they can't show every single thing for 2,000 hours of research into 40 to 50 minutes. And with, it's impossible. But they will hopefully. I know there was on Ancestry blog. They've had a blog about each of the episodes and what they went into, and examples, like for Noah's, they showed the pension file and stuff. So you can just Google Ancestry blog and with Noah's name, and that should pop up.
And so, many times during the Twitter chat during the show, they will post links to the documents too, so you can go in and look. But we need to remember that they don't make this for genealogists.
No,
they're not making the show for us. We love
for
to watch
entertainment.
It.
Yeah, it's for entertainment. It's to whet people's appetite,
exactly.
Get them interested in genealogy.
That's right.
I once had someone tell me from the show, but I'm not going to say who it is, that if we did everything, like that, we would turn people away if they knew the massive amount of work and time. But we don't want to turn off anybody.
That's right.
We're here to excite you and help you. And yes, my phone rings off the hook right after either episode or when they first announce it. I have to let it out. That's why I took my phone number off of my website because I can't handle those calls right now. So someone else can pick that up. So anyway, Jennifer, I know you watched the show, and I appreciate you giving me some of the information as to the researchers' names and so forth. So thank you for that. Let's start with you and giving your input about how you felt.
Well, for me, it was very, very interesting, particularly with the outcome of Noah's great-grandfather, and how he had committed suicide. Unfortunately, I have a couple of those situations that have come up in my family history. And so for me, it was it broke my heart, because my great-grandfather in the late 30s did something. He didn't shoot himself in the head, thank goodness, but he did commit suicide, and it affected my grandmother quite a bit, to the point where I've always just really admired my grandmother, because she faced so many tragedies in her life, and yet she went on to be probably one of the most upbeat, optimistic people I've ever known. So when Noah started talking about suicide and how he had always thought it was a cowardly act, and that this kind of made him think twice about it, at first I was really upset, because, you know, I have that history in my family, and I've never thought of it as a cowardly act. And that's just, you know, my personal. At first, I was kind of mad at Noah for saying that, even though I don't know him personally. But then he went on to say, you know, the act of sacrifice, and, you know, he was looking out for his family, and, you know, and he so I think it really affected information. As that kind of thing does.
Change his opinion on that. When he said, you know, he felt that it was a selfish act, and for a long time I had that same opinion, but different things have happened where it's like, well, you know, it opened his eyes up to something else. And I had an ancestor that committed suicide too, the night before he was to go to trial for sedition. And
oh my.
Yeah, and I have a picture of the courthouse and where he would have had to sit. Unlike Noah's ancestor, it took my ancestor 3 times to shoot himself in the head. It didn't work the first 2 times, but anyway, but yeah. So I'm so sorry. I didn't know that your grandfather had done.
My great-grandfather.
Or your great-grandfather.
Yeah, I had known about his suicide, but I really didn't know any of the details until I started researching. Had passed. She had left behind a biography that she had written about her family, and it's really been for me as I've researched her family. But in there, she had talked about when he committed suicide. And so she remembered it pretty clearly. And then, of course, you know, I started looking for newspaper articles and all the things that we do. And you know, the more I read about it, the more, you know, just heartbroken for that family, to know that they had gone through this. And of course, the one thing I remember my grandmother writing, done it for the insurance money. Doesn't that sound familiar? And 5. And so it just, every time I think about it, it just makes me tear up. And, you know, so.
We have our box of tissues for you.
Well, unfortunately, I think that's the case often, you know, like that. You know, they're doing it for their family, and it's an act of desperation. They don't realize, you know, that as families, we can pull through these things. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Terry.
Being a little more upbeat.
Yeah, Terry, do you have something a little bit more upbeat?
Well, I just want to actually kind of pigtail on Jennifer's comments there. I have found also, I think at least 3 in my family.
Oh, wow.
One of them was my grandmother's aunt, and nobody knew about her. She did it as a 16, 17-year-old girl because she had the eye of a certain gentleman, and he moved on, and that was it for her.
Wow.
It very, 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 it definitely heartbreaking, and you just wonder what could have. But we have to, you know, keep historical context into all of this. And remember what the times were. These are the times where people didn't talk about these things. You know, the desperation is so awful and so internal that you can see that it's they feel that's their only way because they can't talk about it, can't tell somebody, you know, can't share it. So definitely heartbreaking. As for this episode, I will agree with you, Val, that I totally fangirl over Noah. ER was my favorite show. I never missed it. And I was a young mom. Those babies were in bed. Noah, Dr. Carter was always my favorite. As for this episode itself, it was probably not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. It's just, I didn't feel there was any big wow factor to his story. It was a great story. But for television, we've had these stories now that are just like, so like jaw-dropping, like, you know, I just didn't think his had that. Still interesting, just not jaw-dropping for me. Not, it kept my attention. It just didn't wow me.
I hear you. I in fact, when you messaged me that, and it's like, what do you mean? Especially the headlines. And I have tons and tons of newspaper clippings on the one on my ancestor who committed suicide. And whoa, that was a jaw dropper for me. But then the rest of it was, you know, I'll let Sherry, because she mentioned that she was going to talk about that part of it, that wow factor. But I was impressed with the records that they did show. Yes, they started with the census, which I teach, clients and students alike about that. And of course, that's when I went down the rabbit hole looking at all the other censuses. And I unfortunately don't do that if you don't want the surprise to be ruined to watch the show, because I had already known the sentence that he read before the commercial. I had already found that within 20 minutes of starting my little, excursion, and I found it on Find a Grave, because most of the obituary was on the Find a Grave memorial. I wish they would have shown his tombstone from that, but
that would have probably been a good.
I have it right here. I can screen share. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think him going would have really. That probably would have given it the emotional impact I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, she's hard to please. My gosh.
I know. Never happy.
She is.
Again, this show just didn't wow me.
Yeah. Well, that leads into Sherry talking about the wow factor, and you brought out a really, really good point that I think everyone, all our viewers, and especially those who are just starting and those who have been doing it for a while, need to know. So the floor is yours.
Well, we don't all have wow stories in our ancestry, and so I think sometimes it's good for them to show just a story, because I don't have wow so far. I haven't traced back to royalty, and I haven't have these wild stories and all this kind of stuff. My ancestors are very normal, average, poor people, and I don't have a lot of wow factor. I understand that they're making this for TV, and I can understand what Terry's saying, but I think it's important too to realize that we need to discover our ancestors and like their stories and understand them as people, regardless of whether they're just your average farmer or if it's royalty. It's important to know. And go ahead.
I absolutely truly.
When I know you do.
Totally agree with you.
Yes.
And let me tell you, if you did this research and you found the story and you put it up on Facebook on your blog, I'd have told you that is a great story.
Right.
It's that TV mindset. Like,
yes. And I understand where you're coming from.
So if I put all the research that I did on Sunday and the tombstone photo and all that on my Facebook, you'll say, "Oh, what a great job researching! Why did they show that?"
Well, I would tell you, don't put it on Facebook. Val, it should be on your blog, which you're not doing.
That's right.
Yeah. We won't go there. Okay, now the next subject is all the other kind of records that they showed that even no.
And the only reason I tell you that is because after we did Sean Hayes, I got probably 4 blog posts out of the research I did after the show, just by taking the information they gave. And it's probably one of my top posts. Cousins have come and, they talk to the producers. They didn't talk to the producers. Now they've connected with each other. So that's all.
I know,
That's cool.
I know, especially with all the Chicago things that I have, and after each show, and it's already, this is what, the 4th episode, and each episode I've personally had in my own research, every single thing, and that's why I guess I was just taken aback when I saw the suicides, like, oh my gosh, even this episode holds true. But
well, I enjoyed it because of the fact that there were records in it that I have researched. I have looked at those, the pension records, the widow's pension records, and followed them through. They post them in the newspaper. I've actually held the pension records in my hands.
Nice.
I've read why, the application and why and how poor they are. And of course, each of the southern states had a different reason, different rules and regulations. Some of them didn't have to be as poor as others. It just, you have to look at that and see what the law was at the time, to see why they were filling out those applications. But you can learn a lot.
Absolutely.
From those records. So I liked it simply because of that, and because it was a southern story, and it was that dynamic of, yes, I've got ancestors that were Confederate soldiers, and what does that mean for me? And the whole slave issue, it's very difficult, but you still want to honor your ancestors. It's a very difficult thing, because you don't want it to come across as, oh, cool, they were for slavery, woohoo, and they fought in the Civil War.
You know what? I totally agree with you, and I have to say this, being a Chicago girl, born and bred, I figured I would have more Yankees than I had Confederates. I have one Yankee and at least a handful of Confederates.
So you just have to take them for who they were at the time. We can't make judgments, and people want you to say, oh, they fought because they were this or that. We have no clue. Some of them fought because they needed a paycheck. They just, they needed to feed their families.
The story started out where he was told that his ancestor made good money or was rich and paid someone to go and fight for him. And then another part of the story was, being not so much famous, but, wanting to see, what good things, what big things they did. And so this is a perfect example of, you start with the story, but you've got to prove or disprove it. And they proved this with the records. And I don't know, I think Jennifer, I can't remember, Jennifer, if I messaged you or not, but I was a bit, I thought he was going to go there and say, but he did. He looked kind of disappointed when his ancestor lost the money, or didn't make money, and or Mary Emily ending up where she was. That was my feeling. I can't remember exactly what he said or did, but that was my memory of it.
I think he was heartbroken because the grandfather decided that suicide was the way out, to try to keep them from being destitute. In turn, still destitute.
Yes. It didn't help at all.
Could have stayed.
It made it worse, actually. It probably just made it worse. Yeah.
Well, since I have some of the research and stuff, maybe we could put that into an in-depth magazine. I don't know. I mean, it's not copyrighted, because the show used it as an example, but there's a lot more other documents, and especially the part where, well, where did she go? What happened to her? And I'm going, her daughter Carrie. See, that's the bad thing about doing research.
We can talk about that off air.
So, but anyway, anything else about the hoodoo episode that?
I think just at the end where he was talking about how he didn't realize how Southern he was, and then there she was, being the place where she lived out the rest of her days, where Jefferson Davis, his home, they had turned into this soldier's home. I mean, that's kind of incredible that it went from, I think I'm a little Southern because of the Kentucky roots, to wow. This is the antithesis of being Southern. She was there in this home. So I thought that was really interesting. And because I've never researched anyone who is in a home, I haven't found anybody or had anybody that I've researched for end up in one of those homes. I didn't realize that some of them took care of the families as well. I thought it was just for the soldier. So I guess it just depends on the home, the state, and what they were willing to do. So I thought it was very interesting that they took in the family members.
As well. I had known that they might take in spouses, but beyond that, I didn't know much about it. It was interesting to see like minutes and so forth.
Right.
Great. Well, let's put hoodoo. Who do you think you are on hold? I'm sorry, I say hoodoo. Next week is Jessica Biel. Yay.
Went to Chicago.
I
know.
So we'll save that, and
I'm hoping that Justin Timberlake makes a cameo in that one.
My lips are zipped. No. Terry, can you start us out chatting about Long Lost Family, please?
Long Lost Family this week was a rough episode. I couldn't even tell you what the second story was because I was so wrapped up in the first story. So the first story was a young woman, I think maybe in her 20s, looking for her birth family. She was told by her adoptive parents at the age of 25 that she was adopted and that her mother had a summer fling. She got pregnant, tried to have an abortion but couldn't, and then put the child up for adoption. The truth comes out when they meet the biological mother that she was basically raped by her stepfather.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really rough, Jen. And she basically gave the baby away because there was nothing else that she really could do. And the conversation was very nil about the why when I think it was Chris Jacobs who did her story, when they sat with her. When she finally met the daughter, she told her it was the only thing I could do that I knew would keep you safe. Mm-hmm. She told her, she's like, I loved you, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't keep you safe. It was heart-wrenching, and the thoughts are, why is this on the air? Why are they putting this on? And I understand contractually, like they agreed to do it before they knew what the story was. But it's just so heartbreaking. And, you know, we talked about this, I don't know if it was last week or the week before when we talked about Long Lost Family. You know, I'm always very worried about these poor mothers. You know, they did what they felt was best at the time when they were told it will always be a secret. Nobody will ever know. And now these children are coming out of the woodwork wanting to meet them. Yes, it's great that most of the parents have been receiving them well, but obviously there are stories like this that make it horrific.
Yeah, that's awful.
How hard is this going to be for this mother-daughter to get over it? When the mother when Chris sat there and told this young lady the story of her, basically, you know what it was? She was reading a letter from her mother, and the mother was very plain in the letter. I was living with my mother and my stepfather. He was not a nice man. Next thing I know, I'm pregnant. So she didn't even put it in there. And the girl looked up and she goes,
wow.
So my grandmother's husband is my father? I mean, you could just see the look of despair, disgust, all of it on her face.
And then she said, well, does she even want to see me because I would remind her of him?
Right. And that was the one thing she asked, do I look like my father? And she says, not one thing. She's like, well, maybe the eye coloring. Or it was something very, very minuscule. And she was like, good, you know. But it was heart-wrenching. And you know, I guess word of warning to anybody seeking this information, you don't know what you're going to get. Please be prepared. Please seek that counseling.
Absolutely.
Have somebody there with you. this poor girl, yes, she's got Chris Jacobs or Lisa Joyner, whoever it was, but like, have a support system.
And just be prepared for what you may find out. And all the stories are not going to end up, oh, they want to meet me.
Right.
You could start this and they don't want to have anything to do with you, because it opens up, like you said, Terry, these birth moms were told nobody's ever going to find you. So can you imagine? I mean, I understand the child wanting to find something out about their biological parents, but I also understand about the birth family, the birth mom, especially being told no one's ever going to find you. What if they've never told anybody and they don't want to open up that, for their family?
She said,
tough.
She said that I didn't talk about it at all. No one knew. But I'm glad now that I do know, and that they've seen each other, and I really think that they are going to have some kind of a bond or relationship.
I think so.
Even if it's just friends and stuff like that, because of the healing that I even saw take place during the show.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Terry, for giving us the first part of the show, the story. Sherry, can you talk about or give us your insights on the second?
The second one's much more positive. There was a young man who was looking for his birth mother. Well, actually, the birth mother was looking for him because her husband was dying from cancer, and he knew that it would be important for her to find her son, her biological son, her first son. And so he supported that all the way, and they were able to meet and find each other. And it was interesting as she was talking to them when they met, and she was explaining to him what was going on with her life. He says, well, may I meet your husband? Which I thought was really sweet, because that's, what started this whole thing. And so they were able to meet, and he was able to understand and know why the search began, and understand why he was adopted as a baby, because his biological parents were teenagers, and they weren't in a position to take care of him. So
young teenagers. I mean, she was like 14, 15.
Freshman in high school.
Right. Very, very young. And so that was a much more positive story.
But it was great because her pursuit to do this was for the medical reason.
Yeah.
Because of her next son had died from congenital heart disease.
Yes. And she wanted to warn him. Yeah.
Exactly. And then using that, I was really excited to see use of church records. They went on to Ancestry and saw the tree with the last name and the obituary, and following that lead. It had nothing, following the pastor, you would think, well, that has nothing to do with it. Well, it led to the church, which led to the church records, which led to him actually being allowed to look through the drawer of baptisms, and there it was. So
there it was.
Yeah, the records there. And then, again, it gives you the hints, the clues of how to research whether you're looking for an adopted person or not.
Exactly.
Looking for that same name, or boy, being born on that date. And I did like how they showed and explained that the DNA was an ethnicity estimate. So whoever would like to point that out.
Keyword here, estimate.
Yes. So, yeah. And he was wondering too. That was what's so goosebumpy is it's in their genes. They had the same thought. She needed to pass on the medical history, and he wanted to know because knowing he was adopted and his kids.
Yeah. So much better story, much more upbeat story, I should say.
Yeah.
After that episode aired, my mom texted me and she goes, "I just watched Long Lost Family. Oh, what a sob fest!"
Oh, she was right.
She had never watched it before, and we had talked on the phone.
Oh, that was a
and
rough
I'd said, "Oh, are you watching?"
Oh.
I know. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah,
Yay,
we were
Mom.
talking on the phone, and I said, "Hey, there's all these genealogy TV shows to be watching." And she watched Who Do You Think You Are, and then she watched Long Lost Family, and always that sad.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. 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 Well, the next part of our chat is about relative race. And before I let Terry and Cherry just, run with this, I have to say I was so excited because I'm for Team Green. And they did well, but what was really exciting for me is the tombstone rubbing. Mm-hmm. And because it was the blue team who did the rubbing, and I liked how they did it in the way you should be doing it. So they had some coaching. That's good. But because I'm for Team Green in Colorado Springs, it brought up the idea that, I wanted to show my rubbing, which is from a tombstone. It's alongside the freeway. It's in the overlook to see the Air Force Academy.
Oh, wow.
And I use this as an example for my classes. That's why it's the different colors. But so I was excited about that. So anyway, I know, Jennifer, you didn't have a chance to watch it yet. You can go on to BYUTV.org and see it for free. So check that out. But so plug your ears. Or stay tuned.
I haven't watched it in several weeks. I only saw the premiere episode, so don't worry about spoiling.
Okay. Well, I will let Terry give some insights of what it was. That was my part that I wanted to share. So Terry?
Well, I don't have much to say. It was a good episode. Nothing overly dramatic, nothing overly sad. I just want to say that yay on Blue Team's relatives for telling them that they were going to stay in the tent that night, because old boy was not happy. He walked away, had his little tangent, came back and said, okay, it's good. And they're like, we're just pulling your leg. Thought it was... That's all I got.
That's great.
That was great. That was good. It was too bad they didn't, put up the tent and have them go in there and just.
That would have been funny.
That would have been even funnier than say, no, never mind, we've got a bedroom for you, because they deserve that. Because for those of us that didn't watch last season they did that to a relative coming to their home. They made them sleep in a tent.
Well, I loved how they had the video from last season to show them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was shaking in his shoes.
I do love at the end he did say they've got a sense of humor, and I can appreciate that.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, Sherry, you've got a couple minutes.
Okay. Well, first of all, what was the fuzzy dice? They got the fuzzy dice last week. It was supposed to be Team Black. It was supposed to be, for the game, a perk and a reward or something. It did them no good. So what that's telling them is when they win and they can choose either, something to help them with the game or, something for themselves, they may want to think twice, because the game perk may not be anything they really want, and maybe they should have chosen the money or something else. So I thought that was kind of funny that the fuzzy dice meant absolutely nothing this week. But Team Black came in second. I was afraid, that they would get another strike, but they didn't. And Team Red actually won this week, so that was great. That was good for them because they already had 2 strikes. And this was a good episode because nobody went home, because I'm getting to really like all the teams, and I'm really getting to like their personalities and how much fun they're having with their relatives when they meet them. And so I really don't want any of them to go home. I want to see the whole journey for them and see who they meet. So I like them sitting down with their cousins and looking at why they're cousins. Some of them couldn't figure it out, but maybe, it took them a while, because I know I look at some of mine, I'm like, I have no idea why we're cousins, but you say we are. So I know that happens. So, they couldn't quite figure it out, but, they sat down and looked. And I also like the fact that several times as they've met with their new relatives, that they have things in common with them. Mm-hmm. They've got that same kind of interests that their relatives have. And I think that's really wonderful to find that those things that run in the family like that. I think that's not only have they found somebody who's related, but they have the same interests. And I think that's really a fun thing for them. Yeah. So
it's in the genes.
It's in the genes. Absolutely. It's in the genes. So we've got Team Red now with 2 strikes, and they came in first place. And then Team Black second place, and the blue team third, and then the green team, I'm sorry, Val, got got their very first strike, but they blamed it on the South Carolina weather, and it was raining really, really hard, so they couldn't drive very fast.
Yeah, that was very dry.
And when she said, "I can't see," and he goes, "That's okay, just go straight." It's like, what do you mean? That's okay, just keep going.
No, she couldn't see. It gets bad. It gets bad. She couldn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what that's like here.
Yeah.
And it's like, you pull over the side of the road.
Exactly.
And he goes, "No, just keep going."
Yep. Those torrential storms out here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can get bad.
Another good piece about the green team was at the very end when the cousin said, "I have this book on our family.
Yes.
And you are the missing family."
Yes.
Aww.
Yes. Yes.
So that was really cool.
That was cool. That was really cool. Yeah.
And what I like at the end, when they give them this time, they have a choice of giving $500 with the caveat, and that was the $500 would go to their newfound cousin, or skip the city sign selfie. And I'm going,
the blue team needed.
They had that. They still
had their selfies.
They still had issues. It took like 5 or 6 of them this time again. And it's like, they're probably thinking, "Oh, man."
But I thought it was great of their relative to say, no. Do not think about us. Do not try to give us this money. You take the advantage in the game. So I thought that was good of them.
The advantage is not having to take that time to stop or look for the sign and stop and get out and take the selfie and then text it back to,
exactly
the office. Yeah. So that takes time, especially when it takes you 20 tries.
Exactly. And there have been times it's just a couple of minutes between teams. So that could mean the difference between getting a strike and not.
Well, there was 2 minutes between the first and second place.
Yeah. So not having to stop and take that selfie could really mean winning or losing, getting that strike or not, or, going home or not. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
They showed a couple other things to people, as I call them, silent hints. The phone app, how she looked up her ancestry tree to show him on the phone using an app. So that's, we have to think of how our younger folks, that's how they do that, and then also showing the fourth cousin, again, the ethnicity estimate, but that's all they stopped at. And it's like, ooh, wish they would have explained that was just an estimate. But again, we're all professionals, and that's what we want them to teach and tell. But it's like, give me their phone so I can call them.
And they may have afterwards. I mean, they may have gone on afterwards and just didn't make the cut for the show.
Right. Yeah. Again, so much has to end up. I don't know how many hours on this. I know the 2 professional genealogists that worked behind the scenes for relative race. So I don't know the number of hours or anything like that for that show, but I really liked it. Like I said before, last year I couldn't wrap my head around it. I watched the first episode and was like, oh no. This one I was hooked right away because it's got more substance, and I think.
And I know some people complain about the challenges, but this is not supposed to be just a genealogy show. And I think some of the challenges, even though they can be kind of silly sometimes, it's helping us to get to know them as well. And I think it's helping us with the personalities of the teams, because it's all supposed to be a game, and I have to do something to make it a game and make it something different. So I kind of enjoy. When they were trying to play row the boat, row your boat, I was going, trying to help him with that, help them with that piano, help Maddie go, no, and then Joe do this part.
Yeah. Well, last week,
to get to know them.
Yeah, last week, I'd have been out of it if I would have had to slice that fish or, whatever. And this time, you want me to draw a picture in Pictionary and be timed? No. Can we have a different challenge?
Yeah. Do something else, please. Yeah.
Well, that was a good overview of all the shows, really, and especially with Long Lost Relative Race, to see where we are up to this point. Is there anything that anyone has to bring up about any of the shows or anything? Nope, no shows?
Nope.
Do we have enough time to go into one thing Nope. Oh, I'm not going to tell you what that one thing is, so that we can maybe do that next week. Ooh, cool. We know something you don't know. We'll save that part of the talk. So we've come to the end of our Chit Chat Live. They're giving me the, cut it sign. So I want to thank Jennifer and Terry and Sherry for being here with me tonight to talk about it. We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line. You want to share that, Terry?
Yep. I'm getting to it.
I actually clicked. So drop us a line in the comments below. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the IDG YouTube channel. Oops.
Forget it. It's just not working for me.
Okay. No problem. That's what happens when you do things live, But anyway, that's why I'm here to say it. But follow us on the YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/theinDepthGenealogist, right? Or send us a simple email at info@indepthgenealogist.com. So we'll see you all next time, and go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye-bye.